we moved up to Milwaukee from Chicago area, and
Hmm.
in those days they had the bullet train-ish looking one. Do you remember the one they introduced in the 76-ish?
There was sort of the turbo train had
Yeah,
kind of a bullnose on it. Yeah.
exactly. That was the future. That looked like something at Epcot. $5 each way, Mark. $5 US.
Hmm.
But what I don't know what it is now, but I don't even want to think. And it
It's
was
closer to 20,
yeah, well, that's not bad. I mean, seriously, that's not bad when you consider, what is that, 50
almost
years?
50 years. Yeah.
Yeah, really. So let's talk about the Borealis line. And before we do, I just want to tell you from a layman's perspective, it's wonderful. I haven't taken it yet, but it's wonderful to have it. What was the impetus behind it, and what, in your estimation, has been the success of it? In about a year, did you say it started?
It was started last May, and it's really an initiative that we and the three states, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Illinois, have been working on for quite a long time. I mean, just think about it. A train that goes from Chicago to Milwaukee, and we have very successful, continues on under the Borealis name, and the
Hmm.
whole route is called Borealis on those twice a day trains, once coming down from St. Paul, once coming up from here. Anyone who's driven on I-90 and I-94 across Wisconsin knows how pretty it is,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
knows how miserable it is as a drive. And there has to be a better way. And the Empire Builder starts every day here in Chicago,
Hmm.
goes all the way to Seattle and Portland, and then comes back. And that's about two time zones and a couple mountain ranges away. So there's plenty of reason why the Empire Builder would have some exposure to delay as it makes its way east. Having a train that starts in St. Paul misses all that.
Hmm.
So it's a more dependable departure in the 11 o'clock hour
Right.
from St. Paul coming back this way. And the departure here in the 11 o'clock hour from here gives it some distance between the Empire Builder's afternoon departure.
Okay.
Everywhere we go, where we have multiple frequencies, not only does it raise the ridership on one, it raises the ridership on the other because people have more choices.
Hmm.
And there's a train going when people want to go versus having to change the time you're
Hmm.
going to match the train. So we're very pleased. And I think Wisconsin DOT, Minnesota DOT, and Illinois DOT are all very pleased too with how this train has progressed. And it's going to get nothing but better over time.
How's the ridership right now? I have a sister I mentioned to you the other day who has a daughter up in Minneapolis. She's been driving it, for a year or two. And I said, "Did you know that there's a train going?" She go, "What? Are you actively advertising it in the state of Wisconsin?"
We don't have a huge marketing budget, but we've had huge media interest in this ever since it started. And we're going to be doing some stuff in May to commemorate the 1 year anniversary, which will get us another round of publicity. But we appreciate the grassroots kind of work that you're doing with your family on this. And I wish we had more marketing money, but we really don't. And we'll be doing some things to highlight that. But sure, we're pleased where the progress has been. There's construction work underway at Milwaukee at the airport station, which will
Hmm.
give us a second platform and an up and over that goes to it, which will improve the fluidity of that.
Hmm.
And there'll be construction going on in Milwaukee around a rail yard, which will move the freight trains that pass through our downtown station out and around, which will give us some fluidity and
Right.
other investments that are going to be made all the way from where I am to where you are to Winona, and then after lacrosse with more work there. So we expect the on-time performance will continue to improve. We expect the schedule to be shortened over time. And we expect also that this successful service is going to spawn some desire for even more service between Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul.
Right.
It's already helping people in Minnesota envision what service would be like between Minneapolis and Duluth Superior. And people out in Fargo Moorhead are kind of scratching at the door saying, what about us?
Yeah, right.
And can we get a train that goes, in addition to the Empire Builder, out through St. Cloud and off to Fargo and Moorhead? So
Right.
success tends to breed success.
Yes.
And this has certainly been a success.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but where would I have seen what did they have to do track wise to how were they acquired and or what was anything built to make this possible between Milwaukee and St. Paul, or were those tracks already there and just reassigned?
Well, we're using existing infrastructure, and we have an agreement with CPKC, which is the Canadian and U.S. company that owns the tracks from just on this side of the Illinois border all the way to St. Paul to start the service without making the improvements that we all think are necessary for the service to run even better.
Hmm.
So, as it happened, CP, Canadian Pacific, was looking to merge with KCS, Kansas City Southern, and they went to us and said, "Can you support this?" And we said, "Sure, but," and one of the buts was letting us start this service before all the infrastructure improvements are in place. And
Hmm.
those improvements, so we had an event at the Milwaukee station late last fall to talk about that. We'll be doing some work, or CPKC will, this construction season. And certainly we'll have the new Milwaukee Airport platform open next year. That work is already well underway. If you come off of a 94 and look down to the right as you head to the Milwaukee Airport, General
Right.
Mitchell Field,
Right.
you'll see the work that's underway there now.
Yeah.
And there'll be work underway at lots of other places too. And as the work happens and the work goes into service, we'll see some reliability improvements because it's not where we want it to be. It's not where CPKC wants it to be. It's certainly not where the states want it to be. And we're going to keep working on that through this year and the following year too.
You talked about service. What can I, as a passenger, expect on that trip? A dining car? What am I looking at with and options from Milwaukee or Chicago to St. Paul?
Well, unlike the Hiawathas, which is only a 90-minute trip where there's no food service, there's a cafe car with regional items that we sell in conjunction with the states talking to us. Are you going to sell Surly, which is a Twin Cities craft brew on this
Hmm.
train? Well, yes, we are.
Hmm.
And we're also selling some other regional items. We try to do that on our state routes so you get a feel for where you are.
Right.
And it's not always the same, big beer or the same big snacks you see that, although we have those too on these trains. And the train has business class and coach in it. And our coach seats are already much wider and there's much more spacing between the seats. That's called seat pitch than you'll find certainly in the air and other ground transportation. And business class is even better. Right now on that train, we're running seats that are two and one on one side, two on the other, with a big center armrest and with leg rests and foot rests. So it's a pretty comfortable trip. And it sure beats the heck out of being on the highway with
Yeah.
someone on one side of you who's
Yep.
smoking and
Yep.
talking on the phone with both hands,
Hmm.
someone who's behind you putting on makeup or shaving, and
Right.
an 18-wheeler on three other sides of you. So, um, look, I have to drive too sometimes.
Yeah.
And I have been doing it since the 70s. And it's nothing like it used to be on the interstates. It's much more miserable
No,
to be out there
couldn't
driving
agree
now.
with you more. I
And if you're coming here, of course, if you're from the land of cheese or even 10,000 Lakes or anywhere else, unless you have a toll transponder, you're paying double tolls to get to Chicago. And
Yep.
you're paying $30 and $40 a day to park a car in Chicago when our train fare is less than that each way. So,
It's so funny you should say that. I'm literally fixing to pay tolls after we hang up, but I mean, it's just and they don't make it easy. I'm not trying to say they're trying to make you default, but what is it before I let you go? There's a romance to trains to me, and I've never been a great flyer. I'll fly because I have to or need to, but who do you market toward? Who's your demographic, and how can we have I would think kids would really enjoy the rides. And so what's the effort in terms of bringing in a new demographic or a younger demographic, if you will?
well, our primary competition, everybody's primary competition is driving. And already the 90 minutes between Chicago and Milwaukee is much more reliable
Hmm.
than what you're going to face on 90 and 94 or 294 as you're going around. So basically, what I keep telling people is that windshield time is wasted time. You can't really do anything besides, or you shouldn't, besides driving, right? You can't be
Yeah.
napping, certainly. You can't be doing work. You can't be studying. You can't be earning billable hours from your client by working on the train and using our Wi-Fi or your phone's
Yeah.
hotspot. And we're also finding, and this is pretty much true, you talked about the demographics. I mean, my kids are in their 30s and 40s. They had aspirations. I'm 16, I want a car. And,
Mhm.
they bought cars and the two boys crashed them in their first couple of
Mhm.
years, just like the
Mhm.
insurance table said, and had to pay to fix them. You're finding now that people in their teens and even their 20s don't have the aspirations to car ownership and the responsibilities of car payments and insurance and license plates and parking and tolls. If you go to college and university campuses that were built out when I was in college in the 70s with parking lots and dorms, those parking lots aren't nearly as full because this generation or that generation doesn't really want to drive unless they have to.
Hmm.
And if you go to a place like Bloomington Normal, where our station in Normal is right next to the campus, and there are 10 trains, five each way every day, or other places where we have decent service frequency of more than once a day, even though we do plenty of business at once a day stops, there's a market out there that doesn't want the same kind of footprint that driving a car
Yeah.
does to the environment,
Right.
doesn't want the cost.
Right.
So there's a sweet spot there, and we've been marketing to it. We have special fares for students. We have special fares for veterans and for
Yeah.
the seniors. All of those are where we're aiming our service to hit the sweet spot of people who just don't want to drive or shouldn't drive or don't want to drive.
I don't mean to bring it down, but road rage is something to deal with these days. And I have grown, matured to not get into it anymore. But that's probably a great commercial for you guys to have somebody wielding a 45.
Well, look, we're in the world together,
Yeah.
and that world doesn't stop at the train door. It
Right.
doesn't stop at the plane door. It doesn't stop at the car door.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's stuff going on out there, but you're much better off under our care with a
Yeah.
conductor, an assistant conductor, an engineer. And in the case of the Borealis, we have a train attendant or service attendant
Hmm.
working the cafe than you are out there in the wild. Um, I, when my daughter was going to college in St. Louis,
Hmm.
I was much happier with her riding Amtrak than driving her car back and forth.
Oh yeah.
And it was better for her because she could study on the train.
In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat,
And
Mark.
and some people, I mean, look, I don't encourage this, but we do have a very generous carry-on allowance, and certainly we aren't charging for checked baggage,
Mhm.
unlike somebody else who just announced that in the last couple of weeks. Some students actually bring their laundry back and forth on the weekends when they travel from college, and if you do that, please put it in a suitcase, not a trash bag. But
Yes.
yeah, we do very well in college markets.
That's amazing. Mark, I can't thank you enough for spending some time and continued success. I can't wait to see it go by my house.
Well, it goes by my house because I happen to live in Northbrook, and I see the builder, I see the Borealis, I see the Hiawathas and Metro and freight trains, and after a while, you stop hearing them. But
I lived in Hinsdale, and
mhm.
when I was a kid, and trains were, the freight and the Burlington Northern, and all of them came through there. And I miss it now. I mean, people complain about getting stopped by a train. I love it. I mean, I know that sounds really corny, but I mean, I just love it's something rhythmic and it's something, like City of New Orleans. It's something very, to me, very comforting. You were talking about the advertising budgets, but it would seem to me like the Brewers and Twins and the Admirals and your sports franchises could speak to each other and really create a railway series. You know what I mean?
Oh, but we do that now. I mean, the fact is, Cub fans who have trouble getting tickets here are piling on our trains to Milwaukee to watch
Hmm.
them up there at your place. And the rivalry now that and I was never in favor of this. I will tell you personally that the Brewers moved into the National League.
Yeah,
But the fact is that we do a lot of Brewer and Cub and Sox traffic. Between Chicago and St. Louis, we do a lot of Cubs and Cardinals traffic. Between Kansas City and St. Louis, we do a lot of Royals and Cardinals traffic. So
it's great.
it's out there. And same thing for football, same thing for basketball, and same thing for hockey. I mean, there's been a cup that the minor league hockey teams have passed around. I don't know where that stands, called the Amtrak Cup,
Hmm.
where they were doing that. Sure, it's a much better way. And the folks in Green Bay are scratching at the door too, saying, when are we getting a train up here to Lambeau? So as much as I'm more of a Bears fan than a Packers fan, you still see a lot of those colors going back and forth on our trains, even when they're playing at Lambeau,
Have
because
you
we
been
have
to
bus service
Lambeau?
that goes up. Pardon
Lambeau's
me?
very special.
Yeah,
It's
it's I'll be up there next month, and we run daily bus service through the Fox Valley from Green Bay twice a day to connect with the Hiawathas. And we sell tickets or other bus service that goes straight up I-43. So
Hmm.
between I-43 and I-41, if you're in Green Bay, you want to ride Amtrak, we can get you to Amtrak in Milwaukee. And we very much are interested, and so is WISDOT, in service between Chicago and Green Bay via Milwaukee. The folks in Eau Claire want service between Eau Claire and the Twin Cities. And the folks in Madison, of course, have been waiting a long time to get service that was stymied under a past gubernatorial administration.
Hmm.
That's a live option again now. Talking about letting people ride from Madison to Milwaukee by rail instead of a bus or driving and going
Yeah.
right straight down to Chicago versus driving through Milwaukee or Rockford. I've driven both ways.
Yeah.
And I don't think either one is one's better than the other, except there's more tolls when you go through
Yeah.
Rockford.
When you talk about Green Bay, would that require laying of track, or do you know if that would?
Most of the conversation has been improving existing infrastructure. Most of where Amtrak runs outside the Northeast, except for parts of Indiana and Michigan, where we and the state of Michigan own the tracks, we run on freight tracks. And we work with the freight companies to improve their infrastructure so we can run and they can run reliably together. So
Yeah.
it's a public-private kind of partnership thing. Everybody's service gets better when the tracks are better and the
Yeah.
switches are faster and the signals are tuned up. So there's ways to make that happen. And we are working with WISDOT and others, certainly in the Green Bay case and in the Eau Claire case too. And Madison's been a hot issue for years. We'll
Yeah.
see. I'd like to see all those things happen.
So would I. I live near Port Washington, which is a gem. If you've never been to Port Washington, check it out. And it's not far from the railway. And I think that a lot of people from Chicago keep their boats there, the big boats, and it keeps you out of the marina in Chicago. And you have a lot of reasons to like Wisconsin, I would think.
Well, I mean, look, my mother was born in Eau Claire, and my grandmother was the switchboard operator at the paper mill in Eau Claire. I've been going back and forth to Wisconsin for a good chunk of my 67 years,
Yeah,
and I'd very much like to go to more places in Wisconsin by rail, and I think Wichita would like that too.
I think they'd like that too. Mark, thanks so much.
Great talking to you,
Uh,
Jim. Take care.
you too. Thanks so much.